Comptroller's Corner. I'm your host, Pat Curry, joined as always by Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder. Our top story today, a follow-up to the audit on the Bureau of Fire Prevention, found that only one of the 7 recommendations from the Comptroller have been implemented. Now, Mark, this was a follow-up audit. You do this for every audit. A year later, you come back and look at the recommendations you've made to see what has been implemented and what has not been implemented. And in this audit of the Bureau of Fire Prevention, you found that only one of your 7 recommendations has been implemented, and that was to stop accepting cash at this particular bureau. Now, you're concerned that the controls aren't in place at this Bureau of Fire Prevention that would protect the taxpayers' money, and it could lead to fraud being undetected if that were to be occurring.
Right. So I think you hit it right, Patrick, in the beginning. We started something that no other controller has ever done. It makes sense, and it's common for a controller, obviously, to conduct audits. Where we kind of deviate from previous controllers is that we have put in place follow-up audits, because when we do the audit the first time, usually we get cooperation from the administration and from the commissioner, and then they implement some of the concerns that we have, and we always make recommendations, and then usually they implement the things that we're concerned about. Keeping in mind now that within the controller's office, we have about 45 employees in 3 different divisions. One of our largest divisions, Patrick, is audit. And within our whole department, we have 10 certified public accountants. So we have a sense of best practices. We have a sense of what's right and wrong. And we're very clear when we do these audits. It is extremely disappointing to me that the mayor, the administration, the fire commissioner, they're not paying attention. They're not managing properly. We are making recommendations that usually are implemented immediately. They have not been. This is the second go-around that we've had with this audit. So it's just, it's frustrating, and the people ought to know that there are different powers to be within city government, constructed by the people and in a charter. There's the executive branch, there's the council, the branch that has the common council, and then there's a branch that has the Buffalo City Comptroller. And we all have a responsibility to the citizens of Buffalo. We've done our job, we've done it well, and the mayor and the commissioner of fire, they need to begin to implement the things that the professional auditors have suggested.
Now, I just want to walk through some of these recommendations. The one that was very important to stop taking cash, they've done that. We found wherever cash is involved, there's a high susceptibility to fraud. One is you suggested using pre-numbered documents. Now, the city clerk's office actually sells these pre-numbered documents to other municipalities. So the recommendation was made, hey, buy some of these from the city clerk. It would be really revenue neutral for the city. Yeah. And this would be a way to ensure that for each document has a number on it, you can make sure that whoever received that document paid for it, and that there's not being documents being produced that aren't being paid for.
Yeah. So the only recourse we really have now, Patrick, is that our responsibility is now over. We did our job. We've done it well. We've done it twice. We've done this audit twice. And so now we are obligated to submit it to the Buffalo Common Council. We have. And then we also have the responsibility to talk to the committee that would, the Common Council Committee, to make sure that they understand that the policy positions and implementing policy really has to do with the mayor of the city of Buffalo and the Common Council members. We cannot enforce policy. We can only identify, make recommendations as we have, and then it's up to the elected officials, meaning the mayor and the common council, to implement. So we will ask the common council to take a look at this and to use their influence to make sure that this area under the Commissioner of Fire is implemented.
Some of these other recommendations that you've made that haven't been followed yet are to establish a written policies and procedures. Do you think that's vital to the operations of especially any that receive payment? Any office should be working under written policies and procedures. One is to perform a review of the reconciliation of the revenue. Another is to add the Bureau's information to the website to make it easier for citizens to obtain information on how much these cost. And another recommendation is eliminate this handwritten ledger. This goes along with other recommendations in your audit. Move towards technology and away towards the handwritten way that things have been done for so many years now. And the capability is out there. And the Munis system, which is the city's accounting software, is capable of a great deal of financial records. So your suggestion is let's move past this pencils and pens and erasers age and go into the digital age and make sure that we're doing this efficiently and in ways that make sure that there's proper controls over the city's money and taxpayer money.
Yeah. So again, Patrick, it's disappointing to me. It should be disappointing to the citizens of Buffalo. You're right in terms of the lack of technology that is being used. It's frustrating to me that the city of Buffalo still does not have a technology-based timekeeper system. It's Fred Flintstoneville is what it is. We've used our influence now, and we've been able to pretty much force the mayor and the administration to implement technology-based timekeeper system. In all due respect, to the mayor, when he does his State of the City address, there's technology everywhere. There's cameras and there's lights and there's action. But when it comes to administering to the different departments, there is no technology involved. Written ledger systems are a thing of the past. And not only is it disrespectful to the citizens, but the citizens are unable, as you pointed out, to go on the website to get the information that they want. And that is completely unacceptable to me, because we, in the Comptroller's office, have led by example. The Buffalo News editorial page has complimented the Comptroller's office and has urged the administration and other municipalities to do what we've done with Open Book Buffalo. It is a transparency portal that the citizens of Buffalo are able to go on automatically, no wait, and to find out the information that they deserve. They're the taxpayers. They are paying for this government. And so I'm frustrated. The Common Council needs to be frustrated now, and they need to use their influence to talk with the mayor so that the mayor can talk to the department heads to implement this audit that we've done twice.
Now, you mentioned Open Book Buffalo. I want to talk about that a little later. But this audit is part of a comprehensive process where you're looking at every single office and department and location that the city of Buffalo actually accepts payments, whether it be cash, credit card, or checks. You're looking at each one of these areas, each one of these locations, to make sure that the internal controls are in place in order to fight against fraud and bad actions by an employee or a citizen trying to rip off taxpayers. Now, you've also looked at places like the animal shelter, the Broadway Market, the city clerk's office, and there were offices of licenses. You've looked at all these places, and you've made recommendations, and for the most part, in those areas that they've been followed. Sometimes they're not always followed. But what you're trying to do is avoid a situation now. Now, in the offices of licenses, there was someone who was pocketing money, and the controls weren't in place in order to prevent that person from doing that. But they got caught, and then but you're trying to rely on a way where we're not catching people and then making the rules. We're making the rules first to prevent people from doing these, and these audits are part of that, to try to put the controls in place so that makes it impossible or extremely difficult for an employee or someone else to steal taxpayer money.
Patrick, again, I want to be as respectful as I can. The mayor in this administration has been in office for 12 years. We've only been the controller for 5 years. And so we're in our 6th year. And so I can just tell you, over the last 6 years, we've made it very, very clear to the administration and to all of the commissioners. And we've made it so clear that really the only time cash should be involved is in the treasurer's office, which again is under the mayor. So we have made these recommendations for 6 years. And so at some point in time, you would think the light would go on and they would understand best practices. We'll continue to do what we can do. We will continue to remind them. But these are very, very simple things that create honesty, really, within the departments. And if you don't have these things in place, then dishonest things can happen, like some of the things that you mentioned, people pocketing money. In 2017, with the technology that we have, and with people who do credit cards, and there's all sorts of apps and things, we really should continue to minimize cash within 10 different places within the city of Buffalo. And those really are the recommendations that we've been making consistently, and the administration and the mayor in particular really needs to heed what our auditors are saying to protect the taxpayers.
And you've been flexible as far as how you achieve, as long as the internal controls are in place. For instance, in the clerk's office, there's a high volume of transactions, and it would put a burden on the citizens to have up and back and forth from the 13th floor to the first floor, back and forth to do payments. But you say that the clerk's office can accept payments up there as long as the proper controls are in place, security cameras, reconciliation of revenue, different cash drawers. You're willing to work with these departments to make sure that they have a plan that works, even if it's not the best plan in your eyes.
So if you were to ask this question to the city auditor, or if the taxpayers were to ask this question to the city auditor, and the question is to the city auditor, we've done probably, Patrick, over 50 audits. And so when we make the recommendations, we give the commissioner an opportunity to respond to us in writing. Probably 95% of the time, maybe even higher, they agree with the recommendations that we are making. So what's the disconnect? Why are they unable to implement? That's a problem. That's a problem for the administration. That's a problem for the mayor. The mayor is a manager of these different commissioners. If they are agreeing to our recommendations, but they're unable to implement them, maybe he's got the wrong people in City Hall.
All right, Mark, well, we got to take a brief break. I want to talk a little bit more about this audit and some upcoming audits when we come back.
Thanks, Patrick.
Stay tuned for more Comptroller's Corner after this message.
Are you unemployed, underemployed, or do you need to improve your job skills? Then the Buffalo Employment and Training Center is here for you. The Buffalo Employment and Training Center is your one-stop employment shop. Whether you need help with your search, access to information, seminars, or training, our expert and caring staff is here for you. And the best part is, all of our services are free. The Buffalo Employment and Training Center is conveniently located at 77 Goodell Street in downtown Buffalo with plenty of free parking. For more information, call 856-JOBS or visit us on the web at www.workforcebuffalo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Comptroller's Corner. We've been discussing a follow-up to the audit on the Office of Fire Prevention. Now, Mark, this is a yearly follow-up you do. Because those audit recommendations weren't implemented yet, you will look again in another year and just to see where they are as is the case whenever you do these follow-ups and the implementation of your recommendations.
Yeah, and to be fair to the mayor and to the administration, there are times, Patrick, where we make recommendations and they're implemented, and then we do a follow-up audit the next year, and we pretty much are in agreement, and we thank the department for implementing our recommendations, and off we go. Then there are other times where, for whatever reason, they do not implement, and I think it's because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to implement, and it's troubling to me. And then this is the reason why you have to have the right, competent people within your department, and that is the reason why when I got to be comptroller 6 years ago, I asked some basic questions. The one question I asked is, how many certified public accountants do I have up here in audit and control? And they told me 1. Okay. I'm not happy with 1, so now I have 10 certified public accountants. We have a professional staff up there, and we do our job and we do it right. And these departments that we're doing an audit on, they ought to be implementing the people's will. This is what the people put us up there for.
Now, it's been a year almost since the filing of the audit of the fire department's payroll processes. There was a very interesting audit last time, and it found that there's a lack of controls for overtime usage and lack of approval for overtime, lack of documentation for overtime. An employee was working from home without authorization. There was a litany of findings in this payroll procedures audit of the fire department.
Yeah.
Your audit team is going to be beginning the process of following up on that. You're hoping that some of those recommendations, or that all of those recommendations that you made, would be implemented.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want. But when you're describing that particular audit, the word that comes to mind to me is mismanagement. And so somebody needs to take this seriously. We do. We make the recommendations. We usually get agreement from the commissioner, and again, to why they can't be implemented is beyond me. But this is the question that the citizens really ought to be asking the administration and the mayor and their council member.
One of the findings in that audit was that people were taking time off, but also earning overtime in the same day. And you said, really, if you're taking the day off, you shouldn't be earning overtime in that same day.
And it goes back to what we were talking about before, the Fred Flintstone ville image of what happens in city government, in that there is not technology implemented for timekeeping. And so it's still the old paper system, which nobody does. Nobody does it. And so the city of Buffalo still does it, and it's problematic. And so these things are going to come up time after time after time, but we stay in our lane. We make the recommendations, and then we're hopeful that the mayor and that the commissioners will implement them.
Now, when this occurred, this audit was released a year ago. There was a suspension of an employee in the payroll department at fire, and you offered your assistance to the commissioner. At first, he accepted that assistance of your staff going over and helping with payroll, and then there was a letter written in writing that assistance was no longer accepted. But it's still out there. Anytime that your assistance can be helpful in implementing these changes and these recommendations, you're making your staff fully available to work with the fire department, or really any department, in order to make sure that the city's taxpayer dollars are protected.
Exactly, and just so the citizens understand this, we, as the comptroller, as the separately elected city comptroller, I have a responsibility to the citizens, and I have 3 divisions that I'm responsible for, and we do our job. And when we do our job, in this particular case of the suspension, Patrick, we, the comptroller's office, we didn't suspend anybody. We identified a severe problem, and then we did the right thing. We then conveyed this information to the mayor, to the commissioner, to the corporation council, and then they have the responsibility to act. They acted. They suspended the employee, which tells me that we were absolutely positively right. And so thereafter, we have put in place solutions to their problem, but they have not implemented that. Why? I think because they don't know how to. I think because there's mismanagement in several of the departments, and that's just plain language of what's happening right now within the city of Buffalo.
Speaking of upcoming audits, your audit team is going to be getting an audit of the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, the BMHA, which will look to make sure that taxpayer dollars, whether they be city or the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, are spent in a way that serves people's interests. Now, you'll be starting that audit. BMHA was in the news a lot lately, not only for the conditions of their properties, but also the traveling of the executive director.
So again, I just want to be clear about this, and I think the citizens know me, and that I'm very direct, I'm very candid. This is nothing more than a shadow government. The BMHA, the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, it's a shadow government. It's controlled by this administration, by the mayor. The mayor appoints pretty much all of the board of directors. And so if I had a real standing in this, what I would do, Patrick, is I would suspend the management team of the BMHA, and I would do an assessment and then figure out how to go forward. Also, I have been to many of these housing developments, many of which have been around since 1934. And so this administration really should listen to what the Buffalo News editorial board said, and that is the mayor needs to up his game a little bit on this. He needs to get involved. He needs to understand that this is a problem in our city. And the most vulnerable people are the ones who are living within these housing developments, and they need to live in these housing developments with dignity. And I can tell you, based on what I know, that is not happening. That is the reason why we are doing an audit. And I don't like to talk much about it, because when we're in the beginning of doing an audit, that is something that we have to wait until the audit is completed. But the fact is, we will begin to do an audit, and we will also, I'll use my influence to convince the Office of the State Comptroller that they ought to be looking at this very, very large authority, that perhaps they could do a report or an audit as well.
Now, you're also looking at putting the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority's finances on Open Book Buffalo as part of an expansion. At this point, you're looking to expand it very soon to include other entities of the city that aren't on the Open Book yet, but will be soon. And it'll be easier for these because they're on the same accounting system, Munis, as the city. And that'll include the Buffalo Sewer Authority, the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency, and in the future, you're looking to add entities like the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority.
Yeah, so the three entities you just mentioned, again, they are shadow governments. They are controlled by this mayor and by the policymakers, the Common Council, period. And they can have all fancy names and language and authorities and bureaus, but they're controlled by the policymakers who have the responsibility within the city of Buffalo. And so, therefore, I think it's very, very important that they take this seriously. And right now, it's very concerning to me. And that is the reason why we're going to put these entities that you mentioned, the Buffalo Sewer Authority, the Municipal Housing Authority, and the Bureau on the Open Book Buffalo. It's harder to do for us. We need cooperation. Sometimes we get it, most times we don't, but we will figure out a way to get it up on our transparency portal so that the citizens can have this information.
Now, just for the viewers that might not be familiar, Open Book Buffalo is a web portal on your website that citizens can look up everything from the big picture to the small little details. You got every vendor on there, every employee salary, employee overtime, every payment the city makes. And this is a way to show the city of Buffalo and its citizens how the city's spending their tax dollars.
Yeah, this is something that I felt was very important. And because I have a professional staff, in the Comptroller's office. We were able to do this on our own. We did this on our own. The Buffalo Comptroller's office did this. This is a service to the citizens of Buffalo from the Buffalo Comptroller's office. And this is about 15 months now that we've had this open book portal available for our citizens. And I think you know better than I, Patrick, but I think the number of hits that we get on a monthly basis is unbelievable. So what does that tell you? It tells me that the taxpayers of Buffalo, they deserve to have the information that they seek, and they can do it instantly by going on our transparency portal. And I think there are 1,000 hits a month or something like that.
Of 2,000 or more in each month.
It's amazing to me. So, and I'm grateful that the citizens of Buffalo are responding to transparency that we've brought to city government.
Now, Mark, it's February, it's Black History Month. Tell me a little bit about how you observe Black History Month.
Yeah, so I go everywhere, as you know, Patrick, and the citizens know. I go to every single neighborhood in the city of Buffalo. And so I started off in January with the celebration of Martin Luther King, who is a prominent figure during Black History Month. And I love to tell the story because the next month is what I call St. Patrick's Month. And so the story that I tell citizens is that there is a tremendous connection between the Irish community and the Black community. And it started in 1845. Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, he wrote a pamphlet in 1845 which made him essentially have to leave the country. So he left the country, went to England, and then when he was in England, he went over to Ireland, and he met the great liberator, one of the greatest statesmen ever in Irish history, Daniel O'Connell. And they together worked to help their country liberate themselves. And Daniel O'Connell called Frederick Douglass the great liberator of the United States of America. And in 1845, Daniel O'Connell was 77 years old. Frederick Douglass was 27 years old. There's a message here. People can work together no matter where they come from, no matter what the differences are. And so I think this is a great lesson that I like to tell our young people. On Saturday, I went to the Meriwether Library, and they have what is called the Dr. Carter G. Woodson essay contest. Dr. Woodson is the first one to bring. He created Black History Month, and so the children were unbelievable in their essays, and they were real. And they talked about different contributions that the African American community has made in their own lives and in their schools. And so it's been a tremendous month, and now we're looking forward to St. Patrick's Month, where they come together. The great Daniel O'Connell and Frederick Douglass, I get to talk about them again for another month.
Great. Well, Mark, that's all the time we have for this week's Comptroller's Corner. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us at home. Make sure to check out the Comptroller's website at city-buffalo.com/comptroller, our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and our Twitter handle. On behalf of Mark Schroeder, this is Pat Curry signing off.